The day Dean Martin buried his heart with Frank Sinatra, the funeral that killed the king. The unbreakable bond. In the glittering, smoke-filled haze of 1950s Las Vegas, where neon signs blazed brighter than the desert sun and the clinking of chips was the city's heartbeat, a legend was born. Not just a legend of individual stars, but of a constellation, the Rat Pack. At its radiant core stood two titans, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, whose friendship transcended the stage, the screen, and the very concept of celebrity. Their bond was a force of nature, a symphony of contrasting personalities that somehow harmonized into an unparalleled brotherhood. Frank, Old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board, was the undeniable leader. Driven, intense, a perfectionist with a temper as fiery as his passion for music. He was the engine, the visionary, the one who pushed boundaries and demanded excellence. And then there was Dean, the king of cool, the effortlessly charming crooner with a martini in hand and a twinkle in his eye. Dean was the anchor, the calm in Frank's storm, the one who could disarm any tension with a perfectly timed joke or a languid shrug. He made it all look easy, even when it wasn't. Their story began long before the Rat Pack moniker became synonymous with their names. They met in the late 1940s, two ambitious Italian-American singers navigating the cutthroat world of show business. Frank, already a sensation, saw something special in Dean, then part of the hugely successful Martin and Lewis comedy duo. He recognized Dean's effortless charisma, his impeccable timing, and a voice that could melt butter. When Dean and Jerry Lewis famously split, it was Frank who offered a hand, a stage, and a renewed sense of purpose. He saw Dean not just as a talent, but as a kindred spirit, a man who understood the pressures and loneliness of fame. Their friendship solidified in the crucible of Las Vegas. The Sands Hotel became their playground, their office, their home away from home. Night after night, they would perform to sold-out crowds, a seamless blend of music, comedy, and spontaneous banter. They weren't just performing, they were living, breathing entertainment, inviting the audience into their private world of camaraderie. Frank would sing, Dean would croon, Sammy Davis Jr. would dance, Peter Lawford would charm, and Joey Bishop would deliver the punchlines. But it was the dynamic between Frank and Dean that truly captivated. Frank would often introduce Dean as his best friend, and Dean, with a wry smile, would reciprocate the sentiment, often with a playful jab. Their brotherhood extended far beyond the stage lights. They were godfathers to each other's children, confidants in matters of the heart, and unwavering allies in the cutthroat industry. When one faced a challenge, the other was there, no questions asked. Frank, with his vast network and influence, often opened doors for Dean, pushing him into film roles and bigger opportunities. Dean, in turn, provided Frank with a sense of normalcy, a grounding presence amidst the chaos of his life. He was the one Frank could truly relax with, share a drink, and simply be himself, without the weight of his chairman persona. They shared triumphs and weathered storms. They celebrated blockbuster movies like Ocean's 11, where their on-screen chemistry was merely an extension of their real-life bond. They mourned personal losses together, offered comfort during divorces, and celebrated new beginnings. Their loyalty was legendary. If you were with Frank, you were with Dean. If you crossed one, you crossed both. This unwavering solidarity was a rare commodity in Hollywood, a testament to the depth of their connection. Their bond was built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and an unspoken understanding that only true friends possess. They understood the unique pressures of their lives, the constant scrutiny, the demands of their careers, and the loneliness that often accompanied such immense fame. In each other, they found solace, laughter, and an unshakable sense of belonging. They were more than friends, they were family, bound by an invisible thread that ran deeper than blood. As the 1960s gave way to the 70s and 80s, the Rat Pack era slowly faded, but their friendship endured. They might not have been on stage together as often, but the calls, the visits, the quiet moments of shared history continued. They were the last of a dying breed, living legends who had witnessed and shaped an entire epoch of American entertainment. However, even the strongest bonds are tested by time and mortality. By the mid-1990s, the golden glow of their youth had long since dimmed. Dean, in particular, had begun to withdraw from the public eye, a shadow of his former vibrant self. The loss of his son, Dean Paul Martin, in a tragic plane crash in 1987, had dealt a blow from which he never truly recovered. The king of cool, once so effortlessly charming, now preferred the quiet solitude of his home. Frank, ever the fighter, continued to perform, but even his indomitable spirit was showing signs of wear. The world watched, holding its breath, as these two pillars of entertainment faced the inevitable march of time. The unbreakable bond, once a source of boundless joy and strength, was about to face its ultimate test. If you're fascinated by the golden age of Hollywood and the legendary Rat Pack, subscribe to our channel for more untold stories about entertainment's greatest icons. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a story. The vibrant lights of Las Vegas, once a beacon for Dean Martin's boundless energy, now seemed to mock his fading spirit. By the early 1990s, the king of cool had retreated into a quiet, almost reclusive existence. The effortless charm that had once captivated millions had been replaced by a profound weariness, a deep-seated melancholy that seemed to cling to him like a shroud. The world knew him as the man who always had a drink and a joke, but behind the public persona, Dean was a man grappling with immense personal sorrow. The turning point, the moment that truly fractured Dean's spirit, had been the tragic death of his son, Dean Paul Martin, in a military plane crash in 1987. Dean Paul, a promising actor and musician, was only 35. The loss was devastating, a blow from which Dean never fully recovered. He had always been a private man, but after Dean Paul's death, he became almost a hermit. The stage, once his second home, became a place he rarely visited. The camaraderie of his friends, once a source of endless joy, now felt like a distant echo. He still loved to sing, but the spark, the playful mischief, had largely vanished. Frank Sinatra, ever the loyal friend, watched Dean's decline with a heavy heart. He tried to reach out, to pull Dean back into the light. There were phone calls, often brief, sometimes punctuated by long silences. Frank would try to cajole Dean into a dinner, a round of golf, or even just a quiet evening watching a movie. "Dino, come on, pal, let's get out of the house," Frank would urge, his voice laced with concern. Dean, ever polite, would often decline, citing fatigue or a preference for staying home. He wasn't being difficult, he was simply exhausted, emotionally and physically. The joy had been siphoned out of him, leaving behind a profound emptiness. Their conversations, once filled with boisterous laughter and shared memories, became tinged with a quiet sadness. They spoke of the old days, of the sands, of the magic they had created. These were the moments when Dean would briefly light up, a flicker of his old self returning as he reminisced about their shared triumphs. But the light would quickly dim, replaced by the familiar shadow. Frank understood. He knew the pain of loss, the weight of expectation, the relentless march of time. He saw in Dean a reflection of his own mortality, a stark reminder that even legends were not immune to the ravages of age and grief. As 1995 drew to a close, Dean's health deteriorated rapidly. He was diagnosed with emphysema, a cruel irony for a man whose voice had brought so much pleasure to the world. He refused surgery, preferring to face his final days with a quiet dignity. His family rallied around him, providing comfort and care. Frank, though struggling with his own health issues, remained in constant contact, his concern palpable. He knew, deep down, that time was running out for his dearest friend. The calls became more frequent, more urgent, as if Frank was trying to hold onto every last moment, every last word. Then came Christmas Day, December 25, 1995. The world was celebrating, families were gathered, and carols filled the air. But in Beverly Hills, a different kind of silence descended. At 3:42 a.m., Dean Martin, the king of cool, quietly passed away at his home, surrounded by his loved ones. He was 78 years old. The news hit Frank Sinatra like a physical blow. He was at his home in Palm Springs, surrounded by his own family, when the call came. The chairman of the board, a man who had faced down mobsters, studio heads, and critics with unwavering resolve, was utterly devastated. He retreated to his room, the weight of the loss crushing him. His wife, Barbara, later recounted the profound grief that enveloped him. Frank had lost many friends over the years, but Dean was different. Dean was his brother, his confidant, the other half of a legendary duo. With Dean's passing, a piece of Frank died too. The world mourned the loss of a true icon, but for Frank, it was more than just the passing of a celebrity. It was the end of an era, the final curtain call for a friendship that had defined his life. He had lost his partner in crime, his comedic foil, the man who could always make him laugh, even in the darkest of times. The golden age of the Rat Pack, already a fading memory, now felt irrevocably gone. The weight of losing his closest friend, the man who had been by his side through so much, was almost unbearable. Frank, the indomitable force, was now left to navigate a world that felt suddenly emptier, colder, and infinitely less cool. What do you think made the bond between Dean and Frank so special? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you, and we read every single comment. The air on December 28, 1995, in Beverly Hills was heavy, not just with the crisp winter chill, but with a palpable sense of loss. The entertainment world, and indeed the entire nation, gathered to bid farewell to Dean Martin. The funeral service was held at the Church of the Good Shepherd, a familiar landmark for many Hollywood luminaries. Limousines lined the streets, and a somber crowd of fans and media gathered, all eager to pay their respects to the man who had embodied effortless cool. Among the grieving family and friends, one figure stood out, his presence a testament to the depth of his sorrow: Frank Sinatra. The chairman of the board, usually a picture of controlled intensity, appeared visibly shaken, his face etched with profound grief. He walked with a slight stoop, his shoulders bowed under an invisible weight. The vibrant blue eyes that had once commanded stages and captivated millions now seemed distant, clouded with unshed tears. Frank sat in the front pew, surrounded by his family, but his gaze often drifted, lost in memories. He watched as Dean's casket was brought in, draped in white roses, and a wave of emotion washed over him. This wasn't just a funeral for a friend, it was a funeral for a part of himself. Dean was the last of his true contemporaries, the one who had shared the most intimate moments of his life, both on and off stage. With Dean gone, Frank was truly the last man standing from their golden era, a solitary king in a kingdom that had slowly crumbled around him. Those who attended the service later recounted Frank's demeanor. He was quiet, unusually so for a man known for his commanding presence. He listened intently to the eulogies, his head bowed, occasionally wiping a tear from his eye. His daughter, Nancy Sinatra, observed her father's deep sorrow, noting that Dean's death had hit him harder than almost any other loss. She understood that Dean was more than a friend, he was a brother, a confidant, a partner in a legendary journey. The eulogies spoke of Dean's incredible talent, his warmth, his humor, and his unwavering loyalty. Jerry Lewis, Dean's former partner, delivered a heartfelt tribute, acknowledging the complex but ultimately loving bond they had shared. But it was the unspoken eulogy, the silent grief emanating from Frank Sinatra, that truly resonated. His presence was a powerful statement, a testament to a friendship that had defied the fickle nature of Hollywood. As the service concluded and Dean's casket was carried out, Frank remained seated for a moment, as if unable to move. He watched the procession, his eyes fixed on the casket, a silent farewell to his dearest friend. When he finally rose, he moved slowly, deliberately, like a man carrying an immense burden. He exchanged brief, somber words with Dean's family, offering his condolences with a sincerity that needed no embellishment. The funeral marked a profound turning point for Frank. While he had faced loss before, Dean's death seemed to extinguish a vital spark within him. It was as if, with Dean, he had buried a part of his own heart. The king of cool was gone, and with him went a piece of the chairman's soul. Frank had always been a fighter, resilient and seemingly indestructible. But this loss, the loss of his Edino, seemed to break something fundamental within him. In the days and weeks that followed, Frank's family and close friends noticed a distinct change. The fire that had always burned so brightly within him seemed to dim. His already declining health appeared to accelerate its downward spiral. The joy he once found in performing, in life itself, seemed to wane. He became more withdrawn, more reflective, often lost in thought. The vibrant, larger-than-life persona that had defined him for decades began to recede, replaced by a quiet, almost melancholic presence. The title, "The Funeral That Killed the King," might seem dramatic, but for those who knew Frank, it held a profound truth. It wasn't a literal death, but a spiritual one. Dean Martin's funeral was the moment Frank Sinatra truly began to fade. It was the day he buried his heart, his laughter, and a significant part of his will to live, alongside his beloved friend. The king, the chairman, the indomitable Frank Sinatra, was metaphorically killed by the grief of losing his closest companion, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. The world had lost Dean Martin, but Frank Sinatra had lost his anchor, his mirror, his brother. And the impact of that loss would define his remaining years. The years following Dean Martin's funeral in December 1995 were a somber epilogue to Frank Sinatra's extraordinary life. The vibrant energy that had defined him for decades, the relentless drive that had propelled him to superstardom, seemed to have been irrevocably diminished. The loss of Dean, his closest confidant and comedic foil, had left an unfillable void, and Frank, the indomitable chairman of the board, was now a king without his jester, a leader without his most trusted lieutenant. Frank's physical and emotional health, already in decline, deteriorated noticeably after Dean's passing. He had always been a man of immense vitality, but now, the spark was gone. His once powerful voice, though still capable of moments of brilliance, had lost some of its resonance, its signature strength. public performances became rarer, and when he did appear, there was a fragility about him that hadn't been there before. The man who had once commanded stages with effortless authority now seemed to be battling an unseen opponent, a profound weariness that seeped into his very bones. His family watched with growing concern. Barbara, his devoted wife, and his children, Nancy, Frank Jr., and Tina, rallied around him, providing comfort and support. They understood that Dean's death had been a devastating blow, a loss that went beyond mere friendship. It was the severing of a bond that had been forged in the crucible of fame, a brotherhood that had weathered every storm. Frank would often retreat into himself, lost in memories of their shared past. He would sit for long periods, staring into the distance, a wistful expression on his face. One could almost hear the echoes of Dean's laughter, the strains of their duets, playing in his mind. The emptiness without Dean was palpable. Frank had always thrived on camaraderie, on the banter and shared experiences with his inner circle. Dean had been the ultimate sounding board, the one who could always make him laugh, the one who understood the unique pressures of his life without needing a single explanation. Now, that presence was gone, leaving a silence that Frank struggled to fill. The phone calls, once a daily ritual, ceased. The impromptu visits, the quiet dinners, the shared martinis, all became cherished memories, tinged with the bitter taste of absence. Frank's medical issues became more pronounced. He suffered a series of heart attacks, strokes, and bouts of pneumonia. His memory began to falter, a cruel irony for a man whose life had been a tapestry of unforgettable moments. Yet, even in his moments of confusion, the names of his closest friends, particularly Dean, would often surface. It was as if, even as his mind struggled, the deepest connections of his heart remained intact. He continued to listen to music, often his own, but also the songs of his peers. One can imagine him, late at night, listening to Dean's smooth baritone, a bittersweet symphony of remembrance. The music, once a source of boundless joy and creative expression, now served as a poignant reminder of what he had lost. The Rat Pack, once a symbol of unbridled fun and talent, was now a ghost, a beautiful memory of a bygone era. The world, too, felt the shift. The entertainment landscape had changed dramatically. The raw, unpolished charm of the Rat Pack had given way to new genres, new stars. Frank, though still revered, was a relic of a different time, a living legend whose era was slowly fading into history. And without Dean by his side, the weight of that transition seemed even heavier. He was no longer just Frank Sinatra. He was the last of the Titans, carrying the torch alone, a burden that seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. The final years of Frank Sinatra were a testament to his enduring spirit, but also a poignant illustration of the profound impact of loss. He had always been a man who lived life to the fullest, who embraced every moment with passion and intensity. But after Dean's death, a vital part of that passion seemed to dim. He was still the chairman, still Old Blue Eyes, but he was also a man in mourning, a king whose heart had been buried with his closest friend. The echo of Dean's voice, the memory of his laughter, lingered in the quiet corners of Frank's life, a constant reminder of the friendship that had defined him and the void that could never be filled. If this story touched your heart, show some love by hitting that like button. It helps us share these incredible stories with more people who appreciate the legends of entertainment history. Chapter 5: Legacy of a Friendship. On May 14, 1998, just over 2 years after Dean Martin's passing, the world received another devastating blow. Frank Sinatra, the voice of a generation, the chairman of the board, quietly passed away at the age of 82. The news sent shockwaves across the globe, marking the definitive end of an era. The last of the Rat Pack titans had fallen, and with his departure, the golden age of Hollywood seemed to dim forever. Frank's funeral, held at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, was a star-studded affair, a final, grand farewell befitting a legend of his stature. Presidents, movie stars, musicians, and countless fans gathered to pay their respects. The world mourned the loss of an icon, but for those who had witnessed his decline after Dean's death, it was also a moment of quiet understanding. Frank had never truly recovered from losing Dean. His final years had been a testament to his enduring spirit, but also a poignant illustration of how deeply the loss of his closest friend had affected him. The friendship between Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra was more than just a celebrity bromance. It was a defining characteristic of an entire era. Their bond, forged in the smoky backrooms of Las Vegas and honed under the bright lights of Hollywood, became a symbol of loyalty, camaraderie, and the sheer joy of living life to the fullest. They were two contrasting forces, Frank, the driven perfectionist, and Dean, the effortlessly cool charmer, who somehow found perfect harmony in each other's company. Their dynamic was a masterclass in entertainment, a seamless blend of music, comedy, and genuine affection that captivated audiences worldwide. Their legacy extends far beyond their individual achievements. Together, as the heart of the Rat Pack, they created a cultural phenomenon that continues to resonate today. They embodied a certain kind of American swagger, a blend of sophistication and irreverence that was utterly irresistible. They showed the world that true friendship could thrive even in the cutthroat world of show business, that loyalty could be a guiding principle, and that laughter was often the best medicine. The lessons from their friendship are timeless. They teach us about the value of genuine connection, the importance of having someone who truly understands you, and the profound impact that shared experiences can have on a life. They remind us that even the most famous and powerful individuals need a trusted confidant, a brother in arms, to navigate the complexities of existence. Their story is a testament to the idea that success is sweeter when shared, and burdens are lighter when carried together. Of course, their lives were not without their complexities and challenges. They faced public scrutiny, personal struggles, and the immense pressures of fame. But through it all, their bond remained a constant, a bedrock of support in an ever-changing world. The price of fame, for them, was often a lack of privacy and intense public judgment, but the value of their genuine connection with each other was immeasurable. In modern times, where celebrity friendships often feel manufactured or fleeting, the authentic brotherhood of Dean and Frank stands as a powerful example. Their story continues to inspire, reminding us that true loyalty and deep affection are rare and precious commodities. The Rat Pack's enduring appeal lies not just in their talent, but in the palpable love and respect they had for one another. And so, we return to the title, The Day Dean Martin Buried His Heart with Frank Sinatra, the funeral that killed the king. While Dean was physically laid to rest in 1995, it was Frank Sinatra who, in attending that funeral, buried a piece of his own heart alongside his dearest friend. The king, Frank, was metaphorically killed by the profound grief, the loss of his anchor, his partner in crime. Dean's passing marked the beginning of Frank's own decline, a slow fading of the light that had once burned so brightly. Their story is a poignant reminder that even legends are human, susceptible to the deepest pains of loss. But it is also a celebration of a friendship so powerful, so enduring, that it continues to captivate and inspire generations. The Rat Pack may be gone, but the echo of their laughter, the magic of their music, and the unbreakable bond between Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra will live on forever, a testament to a friendship that truly defined an era. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through one of Hollywood's greatest friendships. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments what legendary story you'd like us to cover next. Your support means everything to us.